And then you find out, hey, do you know what? There is more grip out there, but you can't afford to overstep the mark like you can in the dry. You can't just lock a brake and do a wall of death around the outside of the corner. Driving a race car in the rain is quite challenging. Obviously, you've got a lot less grip, but you have to get a bit of a mindset on it. I used to love racing in the rain, actually. And I guess if you come from Britain, or often the finest wet weather races I ever came up against were from Japan, where they often raced in monsoon conditions and were very good in those conditions. So you have to just be lighter with all the controls, and particularly the pedals, and you've got less grip. But if you just picture yourself in you're in an F1 car, but imagine it's a junior category car, the sort of grip that would have even in the dry. It's all relative, and so you make allowances. You can often brake much later than you thought you could, but then you've got that horrible moment where you get that wrong and you snatch a front brake and head off into the barriers. So you have to creep up on that a little bit. You want to go off the racing line whenever you can, because the racing line tends to get polished. That's where the rubber goes down, of course. Any oil tends to be there, whereas off the track you get little bits of tire debris and general traffic and detritus, if you like, sort of hanging around on the side of the track. Track's less used over there if it's an older track, so it's less polished. And so you start heading wherever you would not normally go on the dry racing line, and find yourself some grip. You can get traction and braking out there. So we used to change the cars quite a lot. They haven't got the ability to do that now. So there's less, because I think race car suspensions are just generally better, and so are the tyres now. And the aerodynamics are a little bit more consistent. You don't so much tend to have a wet and a dry setup like we used to have. We change everything if we knew it was going to be a very wet race. So it's really up to you to just drive with a bit more finesse, find where the grip is, drive to the limit, and not over it. Sometimes you can be out front. Le Mans would be a good example, of a long track like Spa, where you're on your own. And I often used to radio in, like, what's my pace? Because I felt like I was pushing all the limits if you're not around other cars. And it could be like, you're 3 seconds faster than anybody else, or you're 2 seconds slower than somebody else. And then you find out, hey, do you know what? There is more grip out there, but you can't afford to overstep the mark like you can in the dry. You can't just lock a brake and do a wall of death around the outside of the corner and live for another day that easily. So you tend to have to drive slightly under where you think the limit is. But of course, the other thing is the track can change, and the longer the track, the more this is relevant every lap. If it's raining or drying, a corner that was flat out on the previous lap, when you come back round 2 minutes later, might have just a millimetre or two more water on the way in, and you're just aquaplaning straight off the track. Or if you've got 20 odd cars circulating, or like at Le Mans, 50 or 60 cars circulating, you're clearing the water away very quickly and sticking the water up into the air and then dispersing it away from the main lines on the track. And so you're living on your wits. You're really reading this track corner by corner, lap by lap, and it definitely, if you've got a finesse and you're at one with your car, then you'll get a massive dividend from that. The gains you will have and the speed you can take, and then of course the biggest decision of all is, when do I go on to intermediates or slicks? That's the killer, and that cost me my first Grand Prix victory in Spa in 1992 by waiting a lap too long for that. That's the really clever bit, is second guessing when you think you can get away with slick tyres on a drying track.